Welcome to a deep dive into a really fascinating collection of stories. Today, we're not just reading, we're sort of unpacking Oscar Wilde's A House of Pomegranates.
Yeah, and specifically 4 tales from it. The Young King, The Birthday of the Infanta, The Fisherman in His Soul, and The Star Child.
And these really aren't your typical fairy tales, are they?
Not at all. Wilde uses them, I think, with this amazing mix of, beauty and sometimes stark contrast to really peel back the layers on human nature, society.
And what we value.
Exactly, what we actually value.
They're just packed with symbolism. Sometimes it's dazzling, sometimes, frankly, a bit disturbing.
Right, pushing against those conventional ideas about, well, wealth, beauty, compassion.
The soul itself.
Yeah.
So our mission today is really to dig into the most compelling bits, the insights, those moments that make you stop and think.
Even though they seem like simple stories on the surface.
Right. Get ready to look, well, a lot deeper.
Okay.
So let's start with the young king. We meet this young man, he's 16.
Raids very simply, like a goat herd.
Exactly. And he suddenly finds out he's the heir to the throne. He gets to the palace and he's just completely captivated.
By all the luxury, the beauty.
Yeah, he's so excited about his coronation, picturing this amazing robe of tissued gold, the ruby crown, the pearl scepter.
It's pure anticipation of just sheer opulence.
But Wilde immediately kind of punctures that fantasy, doesn't he?
Oh, absolutely. That very night, the night before the coronation, he has these 3 dreams.
And they're not just random dreams.
No, they're like these visceral revelations. They show the hidden cost, the suffering behind all that luxury he wants.
Right. So the first dream, he's in this dark, awful attic.
Yeah, really fell. And he sees these gaunt weavers, even sick children,
working in terrible poverty.
literally weaving the gold thread for his robe. Their suffering is like the raw material.
Ugh. Then the second dream, slaves in chains.
Diving for pearls for his scepter. And they're dying, these violent deaths in the sea. It's brutal.
Luxury just forged in death, essentially.
And the third dream might be the most chilling.
The dried up riverbed.
Yes. A crowd is desperately seeking rubies for his crown. But death and avarice are watching them.
And avarice is so greedy it won't even share a crumb with death.
So death just unleashes plagues. The people die.
Yeah.
Searching for stones for his crown.
And he sees his own face reflected. He knows it's his crown, bought with lives.
Wilde is just hammering home the point here, isn't he? This kind of beauty, this wealth, it's extracted.
At a huge human cost.
An immense cost. So the young king wakes up, naturally, horrified.
And he makes this big decision. He rejects all those symbols of power.
The robe, the crown, the scepter.
And decides to go to his coronation in his old, simple clothes. His goat-herd clothes.
Predictably, the court is absolutely appalled.
The chamberlain is scandalized.
But then there's that moment where a man from the crowd confronts him.
Right. And argues that, well, the rich need their luxury because it provides work for the poor.
It's a really cynical argument. He says the poor toil for a hard master, but it's worse to have no master.
And when the king talks about brotherhood between rich and poor, the man's reply is just devastating.
Aye, and the name of the rich brother is Cain.
Wow. It just lays bare this idea of a system built on exploitation, maybe even necessary exploitation.
Yeah, a very harsh view. But despite all this, the king goes ahead into the cathedral.
The old bishop is disapproving at first.
But then, as the king stands at the altar, this transformation happens.
His simple clothes start glowing like radiant gold. His briar crown blooms with roses. His staff blossoms with jewels.
Divine light fills the place. It's incredibly visual.
It's such a powerful metaphor. I mean, the takeaway seems clear, doesn't it?
Yeah, that true kingship, true worth, it isn't about the external symbols, especially when they're, soaked in suffering.
It's something internal, recognized by a higher power, maybe.
And that the beauty the world often craves can hide a really ugly truth. You have to reject the surface to find the real value.
Okay, shifting gears quite dramatically. Let's talk about the birthday of the Infanta.
Right. A very different feel. We're in this lavish Spanish palace garden. Wilde's descriptions are so vivid.
Oh, yeah. Tulips like soldiers, the smell of magnolias, pomegranates splitting open.
And it's the Infanta's 12th birthday. She's dressed exquisitely, gray satin, silver pearls, total perfection on the surface.
But the king, her father, is just shrouded in melancholy.
And Wilde gives us that backstory, doesn't he? He's haunted by the memory of the Infanta's mother.
Remembering their life, their marriage, And that really dark detail about the auto da fe, the burning of heretics happening when they entered Madrid.
And his grief was so intense he apparently lost the Netherlands because he wouldn't remarry. So there's this deep sadness under the celebration.
The birthday entertainments are quite something, too.
Yeah, all sorts of things. A hobby horse bullfight, acrobats, gypsies with a bear and apes, an African juggler doing amazing tricks.
Like turning a fan into a bird.
Incredible stuff. But the main event, the thing that gets the most, cruel laughter.
Is the little dwarf.
Yeah. Wilde describes him in detail, really emphasizing his grotesque appearance. Misshapen legs, oversized head.
He's basically brought out just to be mocked.
And the Infanta herself finds him hilarious.
Yet the dwarf, he's completely enchanted by her.
Totally. He dances for her with his genuine joy, completely unaware of the cruelty.
And when she tells him to dance again later, he's just ecstatic, runs into the garden, kisses the rose she gave him.
He's lost in this bubble of happiness.
And then Wilde does that amazing thing where the garden itself speaks.
Oh, right. The flowers, the tulips, the lilies, the cactus. They're just as judgmental and cruel as the people.
Calling him a monster because he's ugly.
Only the violets and maybe some animals he was kind to before show any sympathy at all.
It's fascinating how nature mirrors the human cruelty, but also maybe hints at something deeper, like the animals remembering kindness.
Yeah. So, driven by this innocent joy, he wanders into the palace looking for the Infanta.
Wants to invite her to his world, his simple life outside. He gets lost.
And then he enters a room with a large polished mirror.
And sees himself for the very first time.
He doesn't recognize himself. He thinks it's some monster imitating him, even imitating kissing the rose.
And then the realization hits. He is the monster everyone's laughing at.
It's just devastating. Utterly heartbreaking.
He collapses, weeping, tears the rose apart.
And when the Infanta and her friends find him, they don't understand.
No, they think he's sulking or playing a game. They demand he dance.
Don Pedro even tries to force him.
But the Chamberlain checks him and finds he's dead.
His heart literally broke from the shock, the cruelty.
And that final line from the Infanta, it's just chillin'.
When she's told his heart is broken, she just frowns and says,
"For the future, let those who come to play with me have no hearts."
Ugh. It just perfectly captures this monstrous inability to see or care, born from privilege and focusing only on the surface.
The real grotesque thing wasn't the dwarf's body, it was her lack of empathy.
Exactly. A tragedy of ignorance and cruelty.
Okay, let's move to the fisherman and his soul. This one's really complex, isn't it? Exploring love, identity, good versus evil.
Definitely. It starts simply enough. A young fisherman falls in love with a mermaid.
But the big problem is, sea folk don't have souls. And to be with her underwater, he's told he needs to get rid of his own soul.
Which immediately sets up the core conflict. How do you do that? Who do you ask?
First, he asks the priest.
Who's horrified, naturally. Values the soul above everything, condemns the love. No help there.
And the merchants.
They just laugh. What's a soul worth? Can you trade it for silver? They don't get it either.
So desperate, he seeks out a witch on a mountain.
She offers him all kinds of magic, control over storms, charms, dark stuff.
But he only wants one thing, how to get rid of his soul.
And her price is weird. He has to dance with her at midnight.
And during the dance, this dark figure appears, maybe her master.
Implied, yeah. But the fisherman cries out to God and they vanish.
So the witch is forced to tell him the secret. He has to cut away his shadow with a special knife, with his back to the moon. The shadow, she says, is the body of the soul.
Wow.
So he does it. He literally cuts his soul away.
But the soul pleads with him, "Don't send me out without a heart. Give me your heart."
But the fisherman refuses. He says, "I need my heart to love the mermaid."
So the soul leaves, heartless.
He joins the mermaid, lives under the sea, but something's wrong.
Without a heart, he can't really feel or appreciate the wonders she shows him. It's hollow.
Meanwhile, the heartless soul is out wandering the world, and it comes back twice to tempt him.
Right. The first time, it tells him about traveling east, seeking wisdom.
It describes finding the mirror of wisdom,
which reflects everything except the person looking into it. So, objective knowledge, ultimate wisdom.
A huge temptation. The second time, the soul travels south seeking riches and pleasure.
Paints this incredibly vivid picture of a bustling city, bazaar, exotic goods, music, jewels, the emperor's treasury.
And it mentions finding the ring of riches. Makes you richer than kings.
Another massive temptation, wisdom and riches.
But the fisherman still chooses love, refuses both times, initially.
Initially. But then the soul mentions seeing a girl dancing.
Yeah, just a brief description of a dancing girl in a tavern, and for some reason that's what tempts him.
Strange detail, isn't it? But it works. He lets the soul back in. His shadow returns.
And this is where the tragedy really unfolds.
Because the soul came back, but it still has no heart.
And now, reunited, the fisherman finds himself compelled to do terrible things. Stealing, even murder.
He's horrified by his own actions, but he can't stop.
He tries to get rid of the soul again, cuts at his shadow, but nothing happens.
Learns the spell only works once.
And the soul explains why it's like this. It says, basically, you sent me out without a heart, so I learned evil, and I learned to love it.
Chilling. Without compassion, the soul just defaulted to evil.
Trapped and despairing, the fisherman goes back to the shore, calls for his mermaid for 3 years.
But she never comes back.
The sea folk mourn her, apparently. Dead sea creatures wash ashore near where he calls.
And they bury them in this barren patch of ground near the church.
But then, the unexpected Wilding twist.
From that same defiled burial ground, these strange, beautiful flowers grow.
Incredibly beautiful, with this amazing scent that fills the church.
And it affects the priest. He was about to preach about God's wrath.
But the flowers' scent and beauty trouble him, change his mind. He speaks instead about the God whose name is love.
And then he goes out and blesses the sea and all its creatures, the very things he might have cursed before.
The flowers vanish, the sea folk leave. But that moment of grace, born from death and defilement, remains.
It's such a complex ending. The message seems to be partly about the soul needing a heart, needing compassion to be good.
But also maybe that beauty and grace can emerge from the most unexpected, even corrupted places. Redemption isn't simple.
No, definitely not.
Okay, finally, let's get to the Star Child.
Another story starting with a kind of miraculous discovery.
Right. Bitter winter night. 2 poor woodcutters find what looks like a fallen star.
But it's a child wrapped in a gold cloak with an amber necklace.
The wife is hesitant at first. They're already so poor, struggling to feed their own kids.
But the woodcutter persuades her with that line, "Into a house where a heart is hard, cometh there not always a bitter wind."
Such a great line. An argument for compassion even in hardship.
Yeah.
So they take the child in.
And they raise him. He grows up to be incredibly beautiful, stunningly beautiful.
But his inner self doesn't match. As his beauty grows, so does his pride, his selfishness, his cruelty.
He's awful. He torments animals, looks down on the woodcutter's own children, thinks he's better than everyone.
Then comes the dramatic turning point. A poor beggar woman arrives in the village.
And the star child is just vicious to her, drives her away with stones, mocks her cruelly.
The woodcutter is appalled, rebukes him, reminds him he was found and shown kindness.
And the beggar woman overhears this and realizes, she reveals she is his mother. She describes the cloak, the necklace.
But the star child, obsessed with beauty and status, denies her because she's poor and, to him, ugly.
He says truly horrible things, like he'd rather be the child of a toad.
And in that instant, poof, his beauty vanishes.
Replaced by ugliness, like a toad skin, scales.
And his former playmates, just as superficial as he was, immediately turn on him, mocking him now.
It's instant karma, almost. Stripped of his beauty, rejected, he finally gets it.
He realizes what he's done, the consequence of his cruelty.
And he decides he has to find his mother, beg her forgiveness. So he sets off wandering the world for 3 years.
And during that time, he experiences the very same cruelty he used to inflict. Mockery, rejection, hunger, homelessness.
Even the animals he tormented turn away from him.
Eventually, he's captured, sold as a slave to an evil magician.
Right, and the magician sets him these impossible tasks. For 3 days, he has to find a piece of gold hidden in a dense, thorny wood.
White gold, yellow gold, red gold. If he fails, he faces severe punishment.
And each day, he tries, he searches, but he can't find it. He fails.
Each day, a little hare appears.
The very hare he'd rescued from a trap, back when he was beautiful but cruel, just before he lost his looks.
And the hare, remembering that one act of kindness perhaps, leads him to the hidden gold each time.
It's that idea again, even small acts can be remembered and repaid, often in unexpected ways.
So on the 3rd day, the hare shows him the piece of red gold. He has it. He can complete the task.
But as he's heading back, he sees a leper suffering terribly at the city gate.
And in this moment of pure compassion, forgetting his own danger, forgetting the magician,
He gives the leper the gold, the 3rd, final piece, sacrificing his own safety.
He goes back to the city gate, expecting the worst from the magician.
And suddenly, miraculously, his beauty is restored. Instantly.
The citizens are amazed. They think he's mocking them at first because he still thinks he's ugly.
City officials arrive, recognize him as their long-lost prince.
He denies it, says, "No, I'm the beggar woman's son, I'm ugly," until they show him his reflection.
And then, the final reunion. He sees the beggar woman and the leper in the crowd.
Runs to them, kneels, kisses his mother's feet, begs for forgiveness.
And they transform. They reveal themselves as the king and queen, his parents. The leper was his father.
Implying perhaps the hare, the leper, they were tests, or related to his parents' search or magic.
Possibly. Wilde leaves it a little ambiguous.
So he becomes king, and he rules well, but only for 3 years.
With kindness, charity, wisdom learned through suffering. But the story says his suffering had been too great, and he dies young.
And the ruler after him is evil again. A slightly bittersweet ending.
Very. It's a powerful story about redemption, isn't it?
Absolutely. Outer beauty means nothing. True worth is inner character, compassion.
And suffering can genuinely lead to transformation and empathy, but it takes a toll.
And kindness is repaid. It's a really potent mix of themes.
Yeah.
So stepping back from these 4, incredible stories in A House of Pomegranates, what a journey we've taken, really.
From the hidden cost of a king's robe.
To the tragedy of a heart just broken by cruelty.
The danger of separating the soul from compassion.
And that long, hard road to redemption for the Star Child.
Wilde is constantly, relentlessly asking us to look beneath the surface, isn't he?
Definitely. Showing how beauty can hide suffering or cruelty. How the things we desire often come at a terrible cost.
And that real value, true worth, isn't out there in the gold or the jewels. It's inside. Often forged through pain, through empathy.
These are so much more than simple fairy tales. They're sharp, sometimes really uncomfortable looks at morality, identity.
The complexities of being human, wrapped up in this incredible, vivid language, they really do stick with you.
They really do. They make you ask, what is the true cost of the things we want?
And how often do we act like the Infanta, just focusing on the outside, blind to the inner lives of others?
What happens when we value things or appearances over people, over compassion?
And can suffering really change us for the better, even if it leaves scars?
Lots to think about. We hope this deep dive has given you a new way to look at these amazing stories.
Maybe spark some thoughts about those hidden costs, the value of compassion, and what really makes for a rich life.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
Until next time, keep exploring the stories that make you question everything.